Granit Xhaka spent the best part of 7 years at Arsenal. He was often the subject of ridicule, controversy. Obviously, he had that big storm off, which nearly threatened his Arsenal career under Emery. But now, after moving on from Arsenal in the summer at Bayer Leverkusen, he is definitely back doing what he does best. And with Leverkusen looking the real deal this season, Xhaka is looking every part the world-class player that we know he can be. So towards the end of his time at Arsenal, Granit Xhaka was moved from a deeper line playmaker into a more advanced 8 role, typically on the left of midfield 3, as you might typically see Havertz or Fabio Vieira currently taking up that position in the Arsenal squad. He became the box-crashing goal provider that Arteta craved, being involved in 14 goals and assists last season. And Xabi Alonso and Bayer Leverkusen jumped at the chance to sign Granit Xhaka, who at 31 cost them only 15 million euros, which sounds really cheap, because it is. But where does Xhaka fit in Alonso's Leverkusen? Well, he slotted straight into that squad, replacing Kerim Demirbay, who went to Galatasaray in the summer. He's currently alongside World Cup winner Ezequiel Palacios in that double pivot in Leverkusen's kind of 3-4-2-1, but we'll go into that in a little bit detail in a second. So this is how Leverkusen set up against Dortmund, and you can see Granit Xhaka in that double pivot in this 3-4-2-1. Grimaldo and Frimpong, the wing-backs, really high and wide, and you've got your two in front, Wirtz and Hoffman and Boniface. It's all quite fluid in the front three, and Granit Xhaka is a really important part of that. But I think the real positive that he brings to this Leverkusen team is the fact that he can drop in between the centre-backs. And when he does this, he moves typically in between Tar and Tapsoba, and that allows both Grimaldo and Frimpong to move a lot further forward because Tapsoba and Kasunu can get further forward themselves as well. And you know, Jonas Hoffman is a really important part of this team as well because he helps to progress the ball through midfield, through Palacios, and to help cover Frimpong, who is probably one of the greatest attacking outlets in this squad. Now, when Granit Xhaka moves in between Tar and Tapsoba, it also allows Kasunu on this right-hand side to get forward and to be able to carry the ball. And Kasunu is a fantastic carrier, and we'll have a little look about him in a second. But this setup, Granit Xhaka dropping in between the centre-backs or dropping deep to pick the ball up, is quite common in how Leverkusen build up, and we'll show that in a couple of screenshots now. And I apologise for the blurriness of this, but you can see Leverkusen's sort of formation here. So you've got these three centre-backs here, you've got your two pivots, you've got your wide wing-backs, the Frimpong's over in the corner there, I don't know where you can see that, and then you've got your Boniface there, and then these two here are the two behind the striker. That just helps to kind of just show the formation and how they're all in quite rotational, fluid places. But I think the most important part you see here is Granit Xhaka dropping in between the centre-backs. And as we said, Kasunu here is allowed to be pushed forward from his position, and he's a really good carrier of the ball and allows Frimpong to push really high and wide and to keep Hoffman and Wirtz inside. So it enables Leverkusen to move the ball across the pitch really nicely. They can move it through the centre-backs out to Kasunu and out to Frimpong, or move it down the left-hand side through Tapsoba and Grimaldo really easily, and then they'll have the midfield runners from Wirtz, Hoffman, even Boniface in cases. And Granit Xhaka really allows this to happen because his passing range and his progressive passes, who he is the top in Europe's top 5 leagues so far this season in the number of progressive passes he has made, his passing ability is one of the main reasons why Leverkusen are able to keep this ball and be able to progress the ball and push the wing-backs really high to get that attacking output that they really desire. And this screenshot also shows that you've got Granit Xhaka picking up the ball from the centre-backs, enabling Kasunu to move much further forward, allowing Frimpong to be not even in the picture and to push really far and wide on the right-hand side. And it really is a main reason why Leverkusen are able to create so much with their wing-backs, in that Granit Xhaka and Palacios can bring that ball up forwards and enable the centre-backs, particularly Kasunu, to move out further into wider positions, to use their dribbling and carrying capabilities to put Frimpong into much more dangerous positions so he can cross in and make chances that Leverkusen and Boniface will typically take. And this position, the deeper position that Xhaka's in, also enables him to take advantage of his quite good carrying ability that we saw at Arsenal last season, and he's not carrying anywhere near as much as he was last season, but in instances he can get forward and create chances for Leverkusen. In this particular instance, he takes the ball from I believe it goes up to Palacios, and he's just making a run from deep just to keep up with play. Palacios plays the ball out to Kasunu here, who then plays it into Frimpong, and Granit Xhaka has continued his run. He's not really being followed particularly by anyone, and he receives the ball from Frimpong and then plays a lovely little ball in behind to Frimpong, who's, because of the positioning of all the different players, because Kasunu is able to be much higher, the rotations between Hoffman and Frimpong can occur, so he can be in these attacking positions and be able to make these runs into these areas. And we've seen Xhaka in a much deeper position for Leverkusen this season, but when you compare it to last season, this is his final game for Arsenal in the Premier League against Wolves, where he scored 2 goals. and you try and spot him, you're thinking, he might be deeper for Leverkusen, but obviously he was much higher in his final season for Arsenal, and he is probably, well, in this screenshot at least, the furthest forward Arsenal player, and Arteta was trying to utilise Xhaka's quite good finishing capabilities, and in seeing that he got 14 goals and assists last season, his box presence, as you're seeing with Havertz more this season, was the main reason why he was being used lots further forward. And you can see that in the fact that this is the goal that he scores from this chance, and that he's there at the back post. You wouldn't typically see him there for Leverkusen now. He would be occupying the sort of area on the edge of the box where you're seeing, I believe that's Fabio Vieira there, or Jorginho, I don't know. But one of those two, you see him at the edge of the box. It's quite a stark difference to the positioning that we're seeing from him this season. But he is really finding his best form, being that controller in the centre of midfield. And we'll see how the stats compare between his last season at Arsenal and Leverkusen now. So we're comparing a full season from Arsenal to about 3,000 minutes to about a third currently so far for Leverkusen this season, so about 1,200. And with the similarities we're seeing is that he's never really been a major defensive enforcer. Not for Leverkusen this season, and not really for Arsenal either last season. It's not a it's a slight misconception with Xhaka, and he's not a massive defensive He doesn't have a massive defensive output that is being particularly carried by Palacios in this case. And that job was done for Arsenal by either Partey or Jorginho last season. And Palacios really helps Xhaka to be the best that he can be. In the last 365 days compared to midfielders in the top 5 leagues, Ezequiel Palacios is then in the 94th percentile for tackles, the 91st for interceptions, and the 88th for blocks. Could do a whole other video about him, but his impressive output is really vital to Xhaka being able to fulfill the role that he's currently doing so far. But I think that's where the main similarities that we're seeing from Xhaka last season and this season stop. The differences are that he's, this season, really not a main key goal scorer in the side. And as we said, that's particularly positionally dependent, and it's not really what Alonso wants from him in this Leverkusen team. And that was the complete opposite with Arteta last season. But the main difference that we're seeing that's better at Leverkusen really comes under one term, and that's passing. Xhaka at Arsenal in his final season attempted about 50 passes per 90. This season at Leverkusen, it's more than double. It's about 105 passes per 90. And for context, of players who have played more than 10 90s this season so far combined, Xhaka is only behind Rodri, Kim Min-jae, the Bayern centre-back, and Lewis Dunk at Brighton for completed passes per 90. Xhaka's also top across Europe for progressive passes per 90, 11.7. And both of those stats, the number of passes and the progressive passes, show that everything Leverkusen do, everything positive that they do, comes through Granit Xhaka. He is the main source of moving the ball across the pitch. He's the main man that controls the possession and the tempo on the pitch. And I remember when I was watching the Dortmund game versus Leverkusen, a comment was made about how many balls are all around the pitch. There was I think it's about 11 balls around the pitch, and it really highlights Xabi Alonso's want of a constant tempo to be maintained. So whenever the ball goes off, out for a throw, out for a corner, the ball's back on as quickly as possible. So it's kind of suffocating them with this possession. And Granit Xhaka is a really important part of it, and I think it really works to his strengths, and what we're seeing this season would definitely kind of back that up. And when we compare the positioning based on the heat maps from the Leverkusen-Dortmund game and from Xhaka's final game for Arsenal against Wolves, you can really see the differences that's being demanded of him in each of these tactical scenarios. So in the Dortmund game for Leverkusen, Xhaka makes 105 passes in 90 minutes. Compare that to the Arsenal game, he makes 22 in 75. That's the big difference in the colouring of the heat map. And you can see that he is the main passer in that Leverkusen team. That's why it's such a dark red colour. And you can see that he's kind of all across the centre of the pitch. But there are very, very few, very little amounts of yellow in the penalty box. When you compare that to Arsenal, it's a lot more spread, a lot less intense. But you can see right at the edge of the box, that's where he's getting in, box crashing. It's where he's being that focal point, not focal point, but being a main part of the Arsenal attack with his height, which we're not seeing at Leverkusen. I think it's really interesting to see how Xhaka's adapted to both scenarios. And the number of passes and the responsibility that Xhaka's been given in this squad really points to the trust that Xabi Alonso must have in Xhaka and his instinct in the game to make the right decisions alongside the tactics that Alonso wants, because a manager can do so much that they want with the tactics, but when you have a player of the quality of Xhaka, you give him the impetus to keep the ball, to keep the ball moving, to control the tempo. He's going to do it, and he's doing it immensely well. And this is a relationship that's really working, even 6 months in. You'd argue that Xhaka's also becoming one of the main leaders at Leverkusen, and that was probably quite a big reason why Xabi Alonso brought him in. So there are some younger players in that Leverkusen team. The average age versus Dortmund was 26.6. So you've got Jeremy Frimpong, who's 22, Palacios, who's 25, admittedly a little bit older, Wirtz, 20, and Victor Boniface is somehow 22. So using the experience that he has to implement Xabi Alonso's tactics and using his experience to put his mark on the team, take control and be a leader, even though he doesn't even wear the captain's armband, is a real strength to Granit Xhaka's game. And you can see exactly the reason why Leverkusen wanted him so badly in the summer, because he is one of the main reasons why they are performing so well. And just to round off, you can see similarities in Xhaka and Xabi Alonso from a career standpoint. You know, Xhaka has worked under Wenger, Emery, Arteta, and now Xabi Alonso. And his footballing education through those managers, his leadership capabilities and his coaching attributes and his obvious, I don't want to say prowess, but quality as a relatively elite Premier League, Bundesliga footballer, you can see on the pitch that could very much translate in a similar way that Alonso translated into management, that could happen as well for Xhaka. So it'd be quite interesting to see whether that does happen in the future. But Xhaka's been a really important part of this team, and I really hope that he and Xabi Alonso can guide this team to winning the league, because it'd be really good for the league, and it'd be quite cool to see Xabi Alonso win his first title with Leverkusen. And Granit Xhaka will definitely be a really important part of it if they can get over the line in April, May time. But yeah, let me know what you think. Can Leverkusen make it all the way? It's really interesting to see how Xhaka's translated from being further forward to being in that sixth role, and can he be a really important part of a Leverkusen title winning team? But thanks for watching. Like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you'd like to, and hope you enjoyed the rest of your day. See you later.